it's really incredible, isn't it, Willie? You have a Secretary of Defense who is fighting a war that has upended the economy, not only in America, but across the world. That as Bob Kagan has written, may be one of the greatest losses militarily in American history. And he finds time to campaign against a Republican congressman who Donald Trump hates, because that Republican congressman is trying to follow through on Donald Trump and Republican candidates' promise to release all the Epstein files. And because Donald Trump has been trying in every way possible to cover up the Epstein files, something we haven't talked about since this war began, he is doing everything he can, along with all of his billionaire supporters, to destroy a congressman who wants the Epstein files released. And the Secretary of Defense has time to go down, and instead of trying to prosecute this war, which we are losing politically, he's instead trying to beat a congressman because the congressman wants full accountability for the victims of Epstein and all the very powerful people around Epstein. Some say, including the president.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary, unusual, inappropriate for a defense secretary to be on the campaign trail to begin with. Let's just start there, to be out campaigning for a candidate. There are Hatch Act considerations potentially here. But then to do it in the middle of a war where just hours ago the president was on the brink, he said, of a new round of strikes against Iran before pulling back again. We'll get into that in just a moment. You have the Secretary of Defense on the campaign trail. And as you say, why are they fighting against Thomas Massie? Because he wants all the information out. He wants the truth out about the Epstein files. And this is how hard they're working to suppress that truth. The president dispatching his Secretary of Defense to campaign against the guy who's trying to get to the bottom of that. Also, Joe, I know this is something you've talked about for years now, which is that Thomas Massie, the argument goes from his opponents and yesterday from the head of defense, is not conservative, that he's anti-Trump, he's not conservative. Look at the voting record of Thomas Massie. Talk to anybody who's ever spent 10 minutes on Capitol Hill. He is incredibly conservative in all the ways that conservatism used to actually hold up. Now we're talking about Trumpism, which is something very different from conservatism. But the MAGA folks, Secretary of Defense, trying to conflate those two things. If you're against Donald Trump, even on the Epstein files, now you're not conservative.
Yeah, I mean, you look. Let's just go down the list really quickly, because Republicans are waking up this morning and they are down. Well, it's really historic numbers, over 10 percentage points, in the generic ballot tests, and that's not just the New York Times Siena poll, which actually usually trends more Trump than other polls. It certainly did during the campaign. But you look at a lot of other polls, Atlas, an A-plus poll, double-digit losses for Republicans on the generic ballot test. Willie, it goes back to what I said when I was in Congress and pushing to balance a budget. I said if you give voters a chance to vote for a real Democrat or a Republican trying to be a Democrat, they're going to vote for the real Democrat every time. You look at this generic ballot, keep that up. Let me explain something to you. When people like Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump go around talking about conservative, I've said it for 10 years. There is nothing conservative about Donald Trump. And now that the Republican Party has kowtowed to him like he kowtows to Xi and kowtows to Putin, this is what you get. You get a Republican Party that has exploded the deficit in historic ways. And the debt, Willie, has skyrocketed. Donald Trump promised to balance the budget. He promised to pay off the debt. Donald Trump, no matter when he leaves office, will set the record for actually piling on the greatest debt ever. In fact, he will have piled on more debt over his time in office than every other American president combined. It is absolutely staggering. The national debt is going to go up probably to $50 trillion over the next year. We're already over 100% of GDP. Donald Trump now has America spending more servicing its debt than on our national defense. Do you want to talk about the Epstein files? They promised full accountability. What do we get? We get no accountability, and now Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth want to try to defeat the Republican that wants full accountability for those that were predators against Epstein's victims. You could talk about Russia. Donald Trump is doing everything he can to destroy a NATO alliance that crushed the Soviet Union. My father was a Cold Warrior. That's why our family became Republicans. It was to push back against Russian aggression. You have Donald Trump and Republicans like allowing and Pete Hegseth doing everything he can do to help Putin win. To undermine Ukraine, to undermine Poland by pulling out troops, to undermine Germany by pulling out troops, to undermine NATO day in and day out in Ukraine. And so the Republicans are actually taking the side that radical leftists used to take in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and they wonder why they're losing. The same thing with President Xi. You have Donald Trump going over there, and what's happening? They're abandoning Taiwan. Again, going along with a communist Chinese leader and saying, well, I don't know whether we're going to fund Taiwan anymore. No president does that. And Willie, I could go down the list time and time again. You have Donald Trump and his Republican Party doing the exact opposite of what conservatives did. For 50 years, for 60 years, we balanced the budget 4 years in a row. We pushed back against Russian aggression. We pushed back against the communist Chinese. We did everything we could to empower NATO to push back against Russian aggression, to expand NATO. They're doing just the opposite, and they wonder why they're getting crushed right now. They don't care about affordability. They don't care about working Americans. They only care about doing what Donald Trump tells them to do, and we see the result. It's very, very bad. So Thomas Massie, not conservative, please. Pete Hegseth, not conservative. Again, really quickly, this is a guy who 10 years ago was campaigning against Donald Trump, said he cared more about himself than military people, and stood before a group of military men and women. And what did he say? If Donald Trump's president, don't follow illegal orders. It's on tape. And now what's he doing? He's trying to go after a war hero, again, something that Republicans would never do in the past. Trying to go after a war hero, highly decorated war hero who's also a U.S. senator, because he's saying the same thing Pete Hegseth said before he started blindly chasing power. It's a sad display, and American voters are onto it.